Prism basketball at this point has been out for a couple weeks, and I saw an interesting post from Jeff Wilson, sports card investor, over the weekend. I mean, he made a video complaining about how a lot of customers of his are complaining that they're buying hobby boxes of Prism basketball and they're not pulling any autos. And again, I think that these types of things can be very anecdotal. Like, when I was looking in the comments, I was seeing other people talk about it, but at the same time, I feel like sometimes within sports cards, the community, whether it's social media, we create opinions based on what has happened to us, which that's human nature, realistically. I don't think that's nothing new, honestly. But in this scenario, he's bringing up the point. He put out a whole video about how there's apparently a bunch of boxes that are going out that don't have any autos in there. And this kind of gets to a point that I think is absolutely one of the biggest jokes within sports cards, is the fact that Panini has gotten away with using the terminology on their boxes of, on average, 2 autos and whatever they say. I think it's actually insulting, if I'm going to be honest, to many sports card people. And I know we're kind of starting off this episode a little bit hot here, but I just I understand that, because autos nowadays, I feel like, are probably a little bit more expensive. Like, they probably have to pay the players a little bit more. The on average tagging that they're using for their autographs in these boxes, that's not going to change. They're never going to go back to, like, I believe in Topps products, it's they say guaranteed, I'm pretty sure, like 1 or 2 autographs depending on the product. I mean, or at least don't, use that terminology. Like, it bothers me that in this day and age you could open up a box of sports cards, Prism especially, and I know I talked about probably last week or the week before, like, not really complaining as much about Prism, because at this point it's just basically a joke. Like, it's really turned into like and I don't think I've used this term necessarily, because I don't really like the connotation that comes with it. It's like almost like a rug pull, if I'm going to be honest. Like, they came out with Prism for so many years, and even if you go back to 2013, so I've always listened to Mojo Breaks. They're a pretty good podcast, and they always talk about how, like, the 2013 Prism, 2012, 2013 Prism, when that first came out, nobody cared about it. Like, they were giving out free packs of that product with breaks, or with when people would come in, they would give out a pack, or they'd give out a box or whatever, because nobody really cared. And then once you got to 2015, 2016, 2017, that's when the traction started to pick up with Prism. And then obviously we know what happened with 2018 to now, or I would say 2018 until I would say 2018 to 2020. 2021, 2022, and then this year, they don't have the stars, I think, that obviously, I think in last year's you have Chet Holmgren and actually, what am I saying? Wembanyama. So Wembanyama's in this year's Prism. So he doesn't have any autographs though. So that's obviously an issue. I guess we don't even know what other players maybe have exclusives with Fanatics. So, like, this is one of the issues that Panini has had and will continue to have until they're gone, or until Topps and Fanatics takes over basketball. Because if they're not going to change the terminology that they're using, the on average terminology that they're using on these cards, or on the boxes, excuse me, they're going to do it. They're just going to keep it. And this is what the problem was with the on average. You're going to get boxes with 0 autographs in it, which is just ridiculous. I mean, at least just put 1 in there. Like, and I understand. I don't want Panini to be picking and choosing which cards go in which box, but it's like, there should be an autograph pile or something. It's like, even getting some old players, or getting some old, retired, or getting some veteran autographs. I mean, it really is just, it's just a little bit ridiculous in my opinion that for so long that Panini has been able to, they've been able to get away with on average because, I think that was pretty up to par. Like up a couple years ago, you were probably getting 2 to 3 autographs within any hobby box because of how much product they were making. And nowadays, there's probably a chance that you're seeing some hobby boxes with 4 autographs in it, and that that negates the box with 0 autographs. But like that doesn't negate the terrible feeling that someone spent on this Prism box. Like this is one of the things. If Panini is going to make Prism their premier product, they need to treat their customers who are buying it and who have consistently bought it as such, in my opinion. I just think that they have gone, I don't know, have they gone too far? And this is one of the first years they really have produced so much of this product that there are boxes with 0 autographs in them. Probably, I would say so. I mean, if you're getting boxes with 0 autographs, like that seems like you're getting scammed. Like that just seems like a scam to me. Like the fact that, and it's because especially here's also the big problem. Somebody buying a hobby box of Prism, that is expensive. That's not a pack or a card or a blaster. Like blasters being $35. I would never buy a blaster expecting I'm going to pull an autograph. But if you say on your box, your hobby box, that you spent some people are saying $900. I haven't looked up the exact price of this year's Prism basketball. I would say probably maybe some of the boxes were $900. I forget off the top of my head, but you're spending in the hundreds of dollars for these boxes for you to open the packs, all of the packs, and get 0 autographs. That is a scam. And unfortunately, too, here, there's no way to really go back and fix any of the, like, it's because, first of all, it's not an issue for Panini. And, in this video with Jeff Wilson, he's saying, well, why isn't Panini making a statement? It's like, dude, Panini doesn't make statements. So it's like, it really is like, they're obviously not going to make a statement here. Like, they've never made statements about anything. They didn't even really make a statement about the Anthony Richardson autographs, which is like, that's like, dude, what are we doing? Like, this is insane. Like, this is the only thing you really had to focus on this year. You screwed it up somehow. So the fact that there are 0 autographs in some of these boxes, again, these are anecdotal. So it's like, there's probably, I don't know. I'm in the boat where I'm not really buying boxes anyways. Like I said, I did buy a blaster of Prism when it first came out at Walmart, but I'm not buying a hobby box of this product. It's not even in the realm of possibility for me. I would buy a flagship hobby box for Topps, but like just hobby boxes nowadays, it's not worth, the juice is not worth the squeeze, I believe is the saying. And especially with this one, and especially this year when, like I said, there are some rumors that there are tons of these hobby boxes with 0 autographs in them where it says on average 2, which that's how Panini can get away with putting 0 in them, unfortunately. And I don't like it, and it's not going to change, unfortunately, but it is what, I guess, honestly, it is what it is at this point. Like I said, I do hope that Fanatics is taking notes here and seeing what Panini is doing and being like, we're going to make sure that this doesn't happen. Because if Topps ever goes to on average, that's going to be a massive, I think that's going to be a massive issue for Topps. Because the on average for Panini is, in my opinion, one of the bigger scams, I think, within the sports card industry. It is the week, Wednesday is when this product's supposed to come out. Series 2 for Upper Deck. So the Connor Bedard, he's going to be getting his first rookie card. Bedard rookie card kind of rhymes. And David Adams put out a $1 million bounty on the one on his 1 of 1 already, which, I mean, honestly, I'll give some credit to David Adams because they have really been the only people that I know of that have put out a bounty and then actually paid the bounty. Like, I think that they put out a bounty for the 1 of 1 Babe Ruth card, and they made a bunch of content about going to like buy the card and giving the collector going to give the collector the money. I don't think it was $1 million. I think it was I'm pretty sure it was 250,000 for that one of one Babe Ruth. But like I said, back in the day, the bounty was really, that was one of the things that came out with almost every single big product that was hitting the market. You would see some company or a breaker or somebody putting out a bounty. Like I remember the Zion one of one. Actually, it might have been David Adams that put out that. No, I don't remember who it was, but like the Zion National Treasures one of one Logo Man autograph that had a bounty on it. I don't remember if that one ever came to fruition. I remember that there were some rumors that there was a counterfeit that went up on eBay of that card. I remember posting about it on TikTok, actually, and somebody was like, no, it's got pulled, and they showed, I don't remember exactly what it was, but I'm pretty sure it was a counterfeit that got pulled, so I don't even know. No, I think that one of one did get pulled in China. I don't think whoever put the bounty out paid for it. I would imagine the people that pulled the card probably sold it as quickly as possible. They probably got lucky just based on like Zion kind of losing a lot of steam, which to Zion's credit as well, he has been okay. Like, we haven't, like, he had the potential really to be like a Greg Oden, unfortunately, a Greg Oden type bust in the league, like getting hurt, not really playing up to his potential. I mean, I think also the pandemic had a little bit to do with that, just like the fact that everyone was so excited for him to play, and then he's hurt at the beginning of the season, and then the pandemic happens, and then the season kind of gets canceled, and then they come back, and I don't think he played in the bubble. So there, again, I think that we're going to have to maybe put some asterisks next to some of the pandemic, which this is not something that's going to happen, but it's something that in my mind, when I look at prices from like 2020 until 2022, I think that there's going to be a little bit of a disclaimer on a lot of those prices that like, there are so many different reasons why I think those cards were selling for those prices, and I don't know if they were really actually, I mean, I'll say I don't know if they were actually really worth what people were paying for those cards at the time, if I'm going to be completely honest. But so with Bedard, I mean, he's lived up to potential this year. He's been like he's probably going to win Rookie of the Year. He's probably been one of the best rookies. So his cards are going to be highly anticipated. I know that over the weekend, actually, I think I saw like Coach Co, he's on TikTok and Instagram. He actually posted a video that some Walmarts were putting out the product early, which when I went to Cardboard Connection, it did say that February 28th was the release date. I'm not sure, because I'm looking at like NHL.com. They posted a tweet. I'm just because I have like a news feed of sports card stuff. But they posted, it said the card comes out on Wednesday, so I guess the product hasn't been released yet, but Cardboard Connection says the product is out. And like I said, people have been pulling the card, so the card, people know what the card looks like, and it's on eBay, which, I mean, isn't totally unusual for cards like this to come out and products to get leaked a little bit early. I mean, we've seen that with like a bunch of wrestling products this past couple of weeks, and then we saw that with the Messi soccer. We saw actually the two biggest Leaf autographs I think that they had in this most recent wrestling product. That was like, they got Dwayne Johnson, the one of one, The Rock, Dwayne Johnson card, and then there was like a quadruple auto with I think like Stone Cold, Hulk Hogan, Dwayne Johnson, and then I forget who the other person was, but those cards got pulled before the product was even out. So, again, this may be a card that, like, it feels like with these cards, and I think I said this on a couple podcasts ago, it feels like these cards, they either get pulled right away, or it takes, like, a long time for them to get pulled for some reason. Like, and this is the type of card that I would imagine will probably be in some sort of database where I guess no matter when this card gets pulled, it's kind of like that Julio Rodriguez card that got the Julio Rodriguez Superfractor Topps Chrome autograph that came out of whatever 2021 Topps Chrome. It's probably going to be similar to that, where it's like whenever this card does get pulled, it's going to hit the news because, Bedard, like I said, is been one of the better rookies this year, and we'll see. Chicago hasn't been that good, so I think that they're actually still sort of trying to rebuild the same way that they rebuilt before, like with when they had Jonathan Taves and Patrick Kane. Like, they got two young players, and they kind of started trying to build around those players. I think that's probably what Chicago is going to do. I don't know if that's going to work again. Like, I mean, to strike lightning twice would be pretty crazy, but I mean, to even get the first pick, to get Bedard after you had, after they were basically in this era, like they were the dynasty of like this era within hockey. So like for them to get that to be that dynasty and win all those championships, and then also to get the first pick with the lottery, which I don't love the lottery. I mean, realistically, I think there should be some sort of tournament for the first pick, because the lottery, I don't know, it just doesn't seem like. It seems like it seems like there has to be some sort of incentive for players or for teams to play for that pick. And if you just give it to the last place team, obviously that doesn't do it. If you do the lottery, that kind of messes things up, I think, in my opinion. It kind of makes things a little bit sketcy. If you do some sort of like play-in tournament for the first pick, that actually makes a lot more sense to me than the lottery. I would guess, but this Bedard card, it will be one that I have on my radar because, I mean, as soon as I heard that this guy was like basically the next Wayne Gretzky, the next like Connor McDavid, and I mean, next Sidney Crosby, whatever, however, whatever player you want to say that this player is the next player of, that's when my alarm bell started going up, and then he gets drafted to Chicago. Great market for it too. I think that's one thing that's going to probably help his cards being in that crazy market. But we're going to see some of those cards start to hit eBay. Some of maybe the numbered cards, we're going to start to see those hit the other auction houses. We'll probably see them get graded soon. But as I always say, just remember, do not go out and buy the cards right away, because in a few weeks, the card prices are going to drop significantly, and you probably will be able to have bought multiple cards for the same price if you go and try and buy it right as the product releases. So right now, there isn't really that much stuff going on, so I'm actually going to cover a story that Danny talked about last week on the podcast. We had to do like an emergency flipping of some of the episodes because Collectors, which previously is Collectors Universe, which is the company that owns PSA, Golden, Card Ladder, all of those companies, they bought SGC, and I wanted to give some of my thoughts on the deal. I'm always a wait and see type person. I do make some predictions. I do try and look at what will be, I don't know, the best of situations here. And it is interesting. The thing that I'm interested in here is what this is actually even going to mean. Like, because SGC, there are so many slabs, and from my understanding from some of the stuff that I've seen, SGC is still going to apparently run on its own. It's going to be run as its own business. I think similarly to how Topps and Fanatics, like, Topps didn't become Fanatics. Topps is just a company that's owned by Fanatics. So I think that's how this is going to work with SGC. And I am in a wait-and-see type mode here a little bit with what I think will happen. I think that SGC, they are number in the 2 or 3 range in terms of most popular grading. Now, the company that owns PSA is going to own like 80 to 85% of the market right now in terms of graded cards. Like, I don't think PSA will be putting their logo on the slabs, like, because honestly, like Nat Turner, for example, he is a angel investor. He's prolific throughout kind of that industry of angel investing, and this isn't angel investing, but he's an investor, so he is trying to get a bunch of chips together. And I don't know, because then there's another rumor that Golden is going to be sold, which I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure about that. I think we've just heard rumors about that. I don't think there's not been an official word yet, which, within sports cards, usually things, the way news sometimes breaks within sports cards is that the news comes out and then it's like a couple weeks after we actually start to get some of the details. But I don't know why collectors would sell Golden and then buy SGC, like, because, collectors, like, it used to be Collectors Universe, which was publicly traded, which Nat Turner bought it and took it private, and I believe it was 2021. So they can do whatever they want. The only thing that I would say here is, like, we have seen within cards the monopolizing of cards, and I don't know. I think you could call them. I think you could call it monopolizing. I think you could also view it as like consolidating, because you've heard me talk about how I think that there might be too many auction houses. I don't think that there's necessarily too many options for grading. Like, there are a ton of different companies that have come and gone within grading, and PSA, SGC, and Beckett have really been the companies that have sustained long-term success within this hobby. And I really do. And the other thing that I think is, like, people, the one thing that I saw when this news kind of broke was, like, people were saying that, like, oh, this is going to be the end of Beckett. Beckett's going to go downhill from here. And it's like, Beckett is in almost a totally different category when it comes to cards that are getting graded, at least from my perspective. I'm wondering if it's still like this, and I don't know how you would be able to, I know that there's ways to pull grading data. I'm not 100% sure if you would be able to pull this type of information, but the types of cards that Beckett grades versus the types of cards that PSA and SGC grades are going to be different. So, yes, Beckett is going to grade cards. They're going to grade less cards. Like, I feel like that's just inevitable. Like, that's just not... I definitely think that people have switched from getting autographs graded by Beckett to getting autographs, like, non-RPAs, getting them graded by PSA. So that's probably has taken a little bit of a hit in terms of their business, but they're still, I would say, probably the leader in terms of people getting their high-end RPAs graded. And from that perspective, yeah, obviously they're going to be grading less cards, but they're probably going to be making more money based on the fact that, like, these cards are going to be worth more, so they're going to be able to charge more. Like, the RPAs are going to be able to charge more. And that's actually something that it may not be Beckett's fault, but something that I think could be a big issue for them over the next year or so. Really could be the fact that we're not going to see any big RPAs within National Treasures for football. Like, Anthony Richardson is going to be that top quarterback, because Topps and Fanatics have the licenses, like the exclusive licenses for all the other big quarterbacks. And then Wembanyama, he signed an exclusive, so he's not going to have any, RPAs in National Treasures or, RPAs in any other product. So that's going to be very interesting. And I don't know, like I said, I think, like, that's a whole different type of conversation. Like, I don't think we've really grasped the impact. Sorry, I'm coming over a cold a little bit here. So if you hear me, if my voice is not sounding 100%, that's the reason. But I don't think we've really understood or grasped the concept of what's going to happen with this year's NFL and NBA classes if there are no, like, autographs of the big players. Like, it feels like, I've been covering it on this podcast pretty extensively, but it feels like it should be almost more of, like, a mainstream issue within cards. Like, the fact that we're going to be getting contenders, and we're not going to get any contenders autographs, we're not getting any RPAs, like, we're not getting any National Treasures RPAs, we're not getting any of the high-end RPAs for any of these top NFL players, and then the number one prospect who, depending on who you listen to, probably the rookie of the year in the NBA, like, it just seems like it's not as big of a story, and that I think will affect Beckett probably more than this SGC deal, because there's 3 players that they if they're, if Beckett's laying out their potential, their P&Ls for the year, like, they can almost, if they're just based on the old data, they can guarantee that they're, and then obviously then depending on, the players and how many good players come out of drafts and stuff along those lines, they can probably guarantee, or they can probably look at it and say, well, we know we're going to. Surprisingly, Panini I guess they just got one of their biggest W's in like years. I don't know, maybe months probably. I would say at least a year, at least 1 to 2 years. They signed an exclusive with Caitlin Clark, somebody who I've talked about on this podcast multiple times. I mean, I think one of the people who, one of the players who's going to revolutionize the fandom of like women's sports, I think, in this country. Like, I think, maybe that's a little dramatic, I would say, but I think what she has done this year, breaking the women's scoring record and then also breaking the all-time NCAA record, her games, like we're seeing, I'm hoping that once we get to the tournament, she makes it to the finals. I'm hoping that they can win, because, like, look, that's, like, honestly, the thing that bothers me about media is, like, and I don't know if this is, like, a female versus male thing. Like, I do think that they do this within male sports as well. When a player, no, I don't know. I mean, I'm not 100% sure. I do think that there's maybe a little bit of like a bias. It just doesn't make much sense why people are like, because the argument of Caitlin Clark is like, is she actually that good? It's like, what are we even talking about? Are you watching the games? Like, she's out here scoring 35 to 40 points a game. Like, what are we talking about? And this is mainstream ESPN, mainstream media. That stuff's all basically produced for clicks. Like, so this argument, is Caitlin Clark really as good as she can be without a championship? Yes, of course she can be. Like, it just doesn't make much sense of what we're talking about here. Like, obviously she's a phenomenal basketball player. The argument is just ridiculous, and I don't know. It may be, like I said, maybe it's a male versus female thing. It is kind of annoying to me, if I'm going to be completely honest, because I don't think we do keep the same energy with most male professional athletes as well, but at the same time, it's like, dude, it's like, what are we, like, it's insane what she's doing. Now, Paige Buchers could probably have been in a similar trajectory as her if she hadn't gotten hurt last year. She's coming back actually for her senior season, which is going to be next year, because I believe she was a freshman at the same time as Caitlin Clark. But she last year tore her ACL, and I think she has the same COVID year, extra added on. But so now Panini has the exclusive. Now, the deal, I guess, was valued at like $3 million, which I guess I'm interested in if this is what this deal is. Like, is it a NIL deal? Because that's what I was seeing, that it was potentially an NIL contract deal, which does that, like, again, these are the things that are a little bit confusing when stuff like this happens in the middle of the season. Like, when stuff like this happens in the middle of the season, it's like Topps has a bunch of releases with Caitlin Clark. I'm guessing there's probably going to be no more extra Caitlin Clark autographs that are going to be in Topps products, if I had to guess. Because, like I said, it's, okay, so here it is. So she's, I'm looking at the Panini tweet. Yeah, maybe it just looks like it's it doesn't really say if it's NIL versus non-NIL, but, like I said, it's I think it's a good win for Panini. I mean, I think it's, Caitlin Clark would have been one of the bigger names within WNBA products next year. I think she still will be. Like, her cards, I think, will still be important. I think Topps is going to have to come up with maybe potentially a different strategy now that there aren't going to be any autographs within the products, unfortunately. But at the same time, it's like, I don't understand sometimes how these contracts work, because if she has already signed if she signs stickers, like, hypothetically, could Topps include those in next year's WNBA products? Or is it like, the only products they can have her in is going to be this, like for the rest of the year. That's all. Those are the only products that she's going to be in. This is sort of where there's a little bit of confusion. And I think actually the headline that she signed an exclusive with Panini, like, I think these contracts can get a little convoluted and confusing sometimes. Like, is it going to be, like I said, like, I mean, luckily for Topps, she was in last year's Bowman, so that means her Superfractor Auto is in there, which I would say it's going to be important for her to be in these types of products, but at the same time, again, the headline I think is good, but also, like, Topps hasn't come out with any, like, WNBA products, so I guess it's good that Panini locked her up for an exclusive deal, but, like, because I guess, you know, they looked at the Topps and Fanatics and, excuse me, Panini. Wow, I got all the names mixed up there. Panini looked at the Victor Wembanyama deal. They're like, we're not going to lose another player to Topps and Fanatics here. And I would say she's one of the bigger names within these products. So, like, sure, she's going to have WNBA cards next year, and that's one of the other questions that I do have about Topps getting the NBA exclusive is, are they going to get the WNBA exclusive as well? Because I know that there are two different player associations. I know that there is an affiliation between the WNBA and the NBA. Like, I don't know if they're run under the same, like, overarching organization, but it's good that I guess Panini there's going to be autographs in these products next year for whatever WNBA team she gets drafted to. I think kind of the interesting thing with women's basketball is, like, the women, like, because since the women's college basketball and men's college basketball happens at the same time, where the NBA season's also going on, we can see sort of who are going to be the top picks within the NBA draft, and we sort of know at this point who's going to be the number one seed or who's going to be the top pick within the NBA draft. Where the WNBA draft, like, the WNBA season happens during the summer, and then, like, the draft, I believe, happens, I think it's like November, or it's like the end of next year, because the season happens during the summer. So, like, or at least the season, I believe, starts probably in, like, the season probably starts, or maybe, wait, no, now that I'm thinking about it, maybe there hasn't been a draft, so maybe the draft for WNBA, no, actually, shoot. Okay, so I'm a bit mistaken here. Actually, it's the opposite. The WNBA draft happens in April, so that the new WNBA draft hasn't happened yet. So that means Caitlin Clark, since she said that she's going to be going into the WNBA draft, there's a potential that she could be, like, she could win the national championship and then, like, a couple weeks later be drafted first overall. I'm pretty sure that's how it works. Like, because I remember Aaliyah Boston was playing in the NCAA tournament last year and then became the first overall pick for Indiana, I believe, or I forget what team she got drafted by, but so Caitlin Clark is going to be the number one overall pick. That means we're going to see Panini draft cards for her. We're going to see WNBA cards for her in her first year, in her rookie year, which I think is a big deal. You know, I think it's great. I think it'll be interesting to see the difference between, like, what her, you know, one-of-one Prism autograph or one-of-one whatever, you know, if they decide to do some sort of national treasure, which, if I'm Panini and I have the WNBA license, this is, like, one of the biggest years, I think, for them, in terms of the actual trajectory of their company, because they're losing a ton of stuff. Like I said, I don't 100% know if the WNBA is going along with the NBA and switching from Fanatics or from Panini to Topps in a couple years, but at least this first year, they're going to have that Caitlin Clark card. So it's going to be interesting to see what the pricing of her rookie cards versus her Bowman cards are, because they're going to be two different companies, and because they came out in two different years, I guess. You know, I'm thinking because the market is different for the WNBA versus, like, baseball or any of these other, you know, sports, that it may be a little bit different. We may not necessarily see the Bowman card be the, like, overarching biggest card for Caitlin Clark, but, you know, who knows? Potentially we could. We are going to see Paige Buchers, who got her first Bowman in this year's Bowman. She isn't going to the WNBA. She is going to be playing that extra year, which I think is going to be cool, because she's going to have
after this year, she's going to have another chance to go for that national championship that, unfortunately, this past year she was out, and then this year UConn is okay. I think that there's a chance that they could make it pretty far, but I just think like Iowa, LSU, I even think like Stanford, there are some good teams within within women's college basketball right now that are probably better than UConn, but we do have the NCAA tournament coming up, so that's also going to be very interesting. Hopefully we see Caitlin Clark make it far. I'm not 100% sure. I guess we'll kind of see how this all turns out. It's going to be very interesting. I'm excited. But like I said, Panini, they signed the exclusive. They finally were able to catch a W, even though over the past few months, years, they have not been doing so.
There was a recent marketing campaign that did catch my attention. Now, I've worked in marketing in the past, and I just find that campaigns can sometimes, I don't know. I don't know if I like, there are some campaigns within sports marketing that I think work really well, and then sometimes they're just a little bit forced, like, I don't know. I don't love most of them. There are some that catch my attention. I don't know if I talked about this on the podcast, but, when Messi first went over to Miami FC, that's when I started following the account and stuff. But it turns out that Miami FC had a partnership with Publix, the grocery store company. And if you have lived in the South or you've been to anywhere in Florida and you've gone to Publix, there's a thing that they have there called the Pub Sub. And so Miami FC was partnered with Publix, and whenever they would have a substitute, it would be the Pub Sub. And it was just like I felt like if you're a Florida person, you're a Southern person, you know exactly what that is. And I thought it was a really good, not interpretation. It was a good campaign that I thought was interesting. I think I've seen that again. Honestly, this is another one that I've seen that's really good. So, Molson's is partnering with the PWHL, which if you haven't been following them, it's basically the NHL for women's hockey right now. It's the first year of the league, and I've seen some of the games on on Nesson, which is like the local channel that like the Bruins play on, which the games are good. But with this campaign, that led into me following it a little bit more, and I had like I said, it had been on my radar, this new league. But why I'm talking about it today is now because Upper Deck has announced they've gotten the license for the PWHL, which makes sense, obviously, because with the NHL being with Upper Deck as well, the NHL, the PWHL probably are partnered in some sense. They have kind of things together, like, because I'm looking at this article too. It's on NHL.com. So if I had to guess, there's some sort of partnership there, so they know what's going on. And obviously, the NHL is going to suggest that the PWHL has their deal with Upper Deck, the same way that they have their deal with Upper Deck. And and then the rest of the campaign, I think I actually forgot to mention the rest of the campaign. So Molson's, the beer company, they're actually sponsoring the jerseys for some of the, like I said, I saw the campaign, and they said they were going to keep the rollout of this campaign going in the next couple weeks, I think, what the campaign was basically was that where the names on the nameplate of the jerseys were, there was going to be a Molson logo, and they were going to put the nameplates underneath the number, because there was a campaign where they were saying the women's their hair was covering their name tag, so they wanted to move it down. Like I said, I think this is a genius idea, and I actually am surprised that I think the WNBA has done something probably similar here. Just thinking back to some of the jerseys that I've seen with the WNBA, but I think that there probably will be a big shift within women's sports like WNBA. I think even probably college, where they move that nameplate down. Like I said, I think this was a phenomenal marketing campaign that, like I said, led into seeing the news over the past couple days of Upper Deck announcing that they're going to have the exclusive with the PWHL. If you've listened to this podcast, you've obviously talked about it, I think, yesterday. On the podcast yesterday, we talked about sort of my interest with with these sports, with the growth of women's sports within sports cards and just the growth of women's sports in general. I think it's definitely something that's going to be good. I think anytime you can add in more competition within sports, it's going to be interesting. And I think that these, I think one of the reasons why a lot of there wasn't as much mainstream coverage of women's sports because it just wasn't on TV. I think it was always as good as it was always good. That's sort of the thing. It was always interesting. I think of some of the storylines, the players there was always good players playing. It just never got the coverage. So now that it's getting the coverage, you're seeing the Caitlin Clarks, you're seeing the Angel Reeses, you're seeing the Paige Buchers of the world, all of these players that are in college that are finally, getting the shine that they probably deserve. They're getting the shine that they deserve in sort of almost bringing the fandom of college or women's sports all together here. There was always these types of interesting storylines within women's sports, within the WNBA, I think, in general, but there was just never, the platform was never there. Now that it's there, we're seeing that it always was there. So it's really, I think that's one thing that's really cool, and that's why I think, we've seen WNBA cards; those have kind of done pretty well, I think. Prism, they have Prism. Hopefully, maybe they do some expansion. We're gonna see with Caitlin Clark. Obviously, she's gonna have some sort of WNBA product next year, since she signed that exclusive, and they're definitely gonna be autographs in there. So that's gonna be probably a pretty interesting product to look out for. But if you're looking for, any of these women's hockey players now, I just am I'm glad to see that the hobby is expanding in this way, where we're seeing sort of an expansion of sports, with WNBA, Prism. It was the first Prism product was, I think, either 2020 or 2021. I forget the exact year, but it was Sabrina Ionescu's year. Her Prism card was pretty much the card that brought Prism back to the WNBA. So over the next few, maybe there's going to be some Young Guns cards in here. I would hope that there is. It didn't look like in any of the preview images they used Young Guns as the concept, but I think that would be that would be a good idea, if I'm going to be honest, for these cards. Hopefully Upper Deck kind of does something similar, create the ideal rookie card for these players. Don't try and create a new product, because I think that's what Panini did with the WNBA. And I would say if Upper Deck, maybe don't follow exactly everything that Panini did, but look at what they did with the WNBA and see that and say, well, we probably can replicate a few things from that, and a few things from what they did will hopefully be integrated into their process of rolling all these cards out.